The other night I was sitting at a lounge when this younger guy next to me started brag, showing me his phone. He wasn't showing me photos of his dog or his recent travels. He was showing me his match pipeline on a new premium dating tier. He was genuinely vibrating with excitement, pointing at these ultra-high-res profiles like they were rare trading cards. I just dropped 300 on a priority boost, he told me, beaming as if he'd just closed a major real estate deal. To him, this wasn't an app, it was an investment strategy for his ego. He felt like a paying predator, finally getting the access he believed he deserved. He kept talking about market liquidity and optimizing his reach as if he were a day trader rather than a man looking for a connection. But then I asked a simple question. So when is the date? His face didn't fall, it just went blank. He didn't have an answer. Instead, he pulled up a chat log where he'd been paying a micro fee per message to a verified profile that was essentially just sending him algorithmically optimized encouragement. He was perfectly happy, thrilled, even to be in a liquidity trap where his biological drive was being converted into platform revenue. He wasn't actually looking for a partner. He was addicted to the probability near zero illusion of one. That moment, watching him celebrate his own financial depletion, made me realize we've crossed a terrifying threshold. By 2026, we haven't just commodified romance. We've turned the human heart into a securitized asset. This isn't a moral decline. It's a systemic evolution into what I call the digital brothel. We are no longer users of these platforms. We are the raw material for a global dopamine harvester that has successfully deregulated the sexual marketplace and priced us all out of our own humanity. That monologue, I have to tell you, rewriting the encounter down on paper later that night, I just couldn't shake this feeling of dread. It wasn't just that this guy was being scammed. I mean, we've all seen scams. It was that he was thanking the algorithm for the privilege of being scammed.
Right.
It felt like I was watching a lab rat press a lever, but, you know, the lever costs $300 a pop.
It's a really visceral image. And honestly, it's not just an anecdote about one guy with, too much disposable income and not enough common sense.
No.
That lounge encounter is a perfect microcosm of the entire macroeconomy of intimacy right now. We are looking at a fundamental restructuring of how human beings connect.
A restructuring.
Yeah. And when we use a term like digital brothel, I want to be very, very clear. We aren't trying to be edgy. We're not trying to moralize sex work or anything like that.
No, it's not about that at all.
We are describing a specific economic mechanism where intimacy is sliced up, packaged, and then sold back to us at a premium.
Right. It's about the mechanics, not the morality. But before we get into the heavy machinery, the economics, what's our actual vision statement for this deep dive? Because we have a stack of research here, behavioral economics, evolutionary psychology, AI projections, that is, frankly, it's a bit overwhelming.
Our mission is to dismantle the illusion of access. I think that's the core of it. Most people think dating apps are just tools, like a digital phone book. You open it, you find a number, you call.
Yeah, that's what they sell you on, a utility.
But the data shows these are not tools, they are environments. And in many ways, they are hostile environments. So today, we are going to map out 3 specific traps that this environment sets for us.
Okay.
First, we need to look at the economic trap, which is primarily targeting men.
The paying predator dynamic you mentioned.
Exactly. Then we have to pivot to the neurological trap, which is where we see, I think, the most damage to women. This is all about dopamine, validation loops, and how the brain actually rewires itself when it's exposed to infinite choice.
Infinite choice. Wow.
And finally, we're going to look at the artificial horizon. Because if humans become too expensive or too difficult to deal with, the market is already inventing a replacement.
The AI companions.
The AI companions. And we'll finish, hopefully, with the reality reversion. How do you actually get out? Is there an exit door in the digital brothel?
A big question. Okay, let's start with the men. Let's start with the economic trap. I want to bring up a specific case study I've been following because it makes this so much more real than just the theory.
Yeah.
I've spent the last few weeks diving deep into the data behind this modern dating industrial complex. As a journalist covering the digital economy, I usually look at numbers, but behind every sexual Gini coefficient is a human being who feels like they're losing their mind. I've been scouring forums and deep web testimonials to understand how these algorithms are actually rewriting our DNA.
And you found a story that really highlights this liquidity trap concept.
I did. It's a perfect example. Let's talk about Mark. That's not his real name, obviously. Mark is based in London. On paper, this guy is a catch. He's a surgical resident. So he's smart, he's driven, he's gainfully employed, he's got decent social skills. But on the apps, he was a ghost completely. He described this feeling of just screaming into a void. He fell into what he called a cycle of high-cost signaling.
High-cost signaling, that's an economic term.
Yeah.
In nature, a peacock's tail is a high-cost signal. It says, look, I have so much energy and health that I can afford to grow this useless heavy tail and still survive.
But Mark's tail wasn't feathers, it was his credit card. He was spending thousands of pounds. He bought the platinum tiers. He bought the super boosts on Friday nights. He even hired a consultant to take candid photos of him laughing at salads or whatever.
Wow, the whole 9 yards?
The whole thing. He was trying to bypass the algorithmic gatekeeping that kept his profile buried at the bottom of the stack. He was trying to prove his value to a machine.
And did it work? I mean, did the investment pay off?
That's the kicker. It worked in the sense that he got seen, he got impressions, the numbers on his dashboard went up. But he told a friend that he felt like he was participating in a digital auction where he was both the bidder and the product.
And the house always wins.
The house, the app always won. One night, after his 100th super like resulted in a match that turned out to be a bot trying to get him to click a cam link, he just snapped. He realized he was funding a probability near zero illusion.
That phrase is key, probability near zero. That's not just disappointment, that's a mathematical certainty of failure that you're paying for.
So he finally quit. Cold turkey. He deleted the data, deleted the apps. He started spending his weekends at a local carpentry workshop in East London, just focusing on wood, grain, tactile reality.
Something real.
Something real. The last I heard, he met someone there. They were both covered in sawdust, arguing over the best way to join a dovetail.
I love that image, the dovetail joint. It's the absolute antithesis of a swipe. It requires friction to work. It requires precision. It requires fitting two unique shapes together perfectly.
And it takes time. It takes patience. But let's back up to the economics of Mark's nightmare. You mentioned the sexual Gini coefficient in the intro. I remember the Gini coefficient from college economics. It's usually about wealth inequality, like, looking at the gap between the super rich and, well, everybody else. How does that apply to dating?
It applies perfectly, and that's what makes it so terrifying. The Gini coefficient, you're right, it measures distribution. If everyone has the same amount of money, the coefficient is zero, total equality. If one person has all the money and everyone else starves, it's 1.
Maximum inequality.
Maximum inequality. In the digital dating market, we are seeing a Gini coefficient that rivals the most unequal economies on Earth.
So we're talking about a winner-takes-all economy. Or winner takes most.
Winner takes almost everything. The digital marketplace creates what's called a power law distribution.
Right.
The top, say, 5% to 10% of men, based on the platform's very specific, very superficial metrics of attractiveness, height, and wealth signaling, they capture the vast majority of female attention.
When you say vast majority, are we talking 51% or are we talking like 90%?
Oh, it's much closer to 90. In some data sets, the bottom 80% of men are competing for the bottom 20% of female attention. It is a massive, massive skew. That leaves the bottom 80% of men in what we call a sexual resource deficit. They are, for all intents and purposes, invisible.
Okay, so if I'm in that bottom 80%, remember Mark was a surgeon, so bottom 80% doesn't mean unsuccessful in life. It just means algorithmically optimized poorly. What happens to me? What's my role in this economy?
You become the paying predator.
God, I hate that term. It sounds so aggressive.
It's not meant to be aggressive in a moral sense. It's meant to describe the economic extraction. These men are paying for the opportunity to hunt. They're the ones buying the boosts. They're the ones subsidizing the free users. They are caught in a liquidity trap.
A liquidity trap?
In economics, a liquidity trap is when you pump money into a system, but it doesn't stimulate the economy. The money just gets absorbed, hoarded. Mark was pouring capital, his money, his time, his emotional energy, into a market that is structurally designed to absorb that liquidity without ever providing a return on investment.
So the app needs Mark to be lonely. Its business model depends on his failure. If Mark finds a wife in week 1, the app loses a customer who's willing to pay $300 a month.
It is a fundamental conflict of interest at the system's core. But there is another layer to this economic disaster. It's a concept called adverse selection.
Okay, this is the market for lemons thing, right? I remember reading about George Akerlof winning a Nobel Prize for this, but I always associate it with used cars. Can we walk through that logic? Because I want to make sure I really get the jump from a 1998 Honda Civic to a dating profile.
Let's do it. It's a brilliant and kind of depressing theory. Imagine you want to buy a used car. There are good cars, let's call them peaches, and there are bad cars with hidden defects, lemons.
Okay, peaches and lemons? Simple enough.
The problem is what economists call information asymmetry. The seller knows if the car is a lemon. You, the buyer, do not. You can only see the paint job, which looks fine on both cars. Because you, the buyer, know there is a risk of getting a lemon, you are not willing to pay the full price for a peach. You discount your offer to cover your risk. You say, well, it might be a lemon, so I'm not paying top dollar.
Right. I'm not paying $20,000 for a car that might explode next week. I'll offer, say, $10,000.
Exactly. But the seller who has the actual peach knows their car is worth $20,000. They're insulted by your $10,000 offer. So what do? They take their car off the market. They don't sell. They say, forget it.
So the good cars leave the market.
The good cars leave. Who is left? The guy with the lemon. He is thrilled to take your $10,000 because his car is secretly worthless. So over time, the market fills up with lemons. The overall quality drops. The buyers get burned more often. So the buyers lower their offers even more.
And then the remaining sort of decent cars leave.
And it becomes a death spiral of quality.
Okay, I see the death spiral. Now, map that onto Tinder or Hinge.
Who are the peaches in the dating market? They're the people who are emotionally stable. They're looking for a real connection. They're reliable, communicative.
The Marks of the world. The people who are actually serious.
Right. Mark goes on the app. He encounters bots. He encounters people just looking for Instagram followers. He encounters people who ghost him after 2 messages. He realizes he cannot distinguish between a peach, a serious person, and a lemon, a time waster, because everyone's profile looks great.
The paint job is always perfect because of filters and curated photos.
The information is asymmetrical. So Mark, the peach, realizes his actual value isn't being recognized. He's being treated like a potential lemon. So what does he do?
He goes to the carpentry workshop. He exits the market.
And when Mark and all the other peaches leave, the ratio of serious people in the app plummets. The pool gets worse, which makes the remaining users more cynical and guarded, which makes them behave worse, more like lemons.
Wow.
It is the market for lemons on a global social scale.
That is profoundly depressing. But it explains so much. It explains why the apps feel so toxic and low effort. It's not just that people are awful. It's that the system structurally filters out the good behavior and rewards the bad.
And the platforms know this. They aren't stupid. This is precisely why you see the rise of things like Tinder Select. Have you seen the price tag on that thing?
I saw the headlines, $500 a month. That's a car payment. That's a lease on a nice German sedan. Who is paying for that?
Well, economically, why does it exist? It's a desperate attempt to fix the lemon problem. It is a high-cost signal. The logic is, if I force people to burn $500, I am proving they are serious. A bot operator won't pay $500. A casual swiper just looking for validation probably won't pay $500.
So it's a barrier to entry. It's like a cover charge at an exclusive club to keep out the riffraff.
They are trying to artificially create a thick market of serious people. But does it actually work? I mean, the data is still coming in, but usually, no, it just enhances assortative mating. It just means rich people get to match with other rich people.
It's a wealth signal, not a character signal.
Precisely. It doesn't mean they are good people or ready for a relationship. It just means they have $500 to burn. And meanwhile, for the average guy, the game theory is completely rigged. The app's primary goal is retention.
Right. And this brings us to the chat for profit model.
We are moving away from matching as the core product. The goal is now to monetize the interaction itself. Pay per message. Pay to see who liked you. Pay to be seen. The algorithm treats the male biological drive not as a problem to be solved by finding him a mate, but as a natural resource to be harvested.
He is the raw material for the dopamine harvester.
He is the oil in the ground.
Okay, that is the economic trap for men. It's brutal, it's systemic, but I want to pivot, because the grass is definitely not greener on the other side. The female experience is just as dystopian, but in a completely different way. It's not about a lack of access. It's about a crippling overdose of access.
A neurological trap.
Exactly. I was reading a series of anonymous posts from a woman in New York. Let's call her Sarah. Reading her words, she sounded, just hollow. She described her brain as being burned out by what she called the digital supernormal stimulus. Now, you have to understand, Sarah is stunning. She's successful. She had over 5,000 matches. 5,000.
To the average guy stuck in the liquidity trap, that sounds like paradise. That sounds like the ultimate fantasy.
That's what you'd think. But she described the validation dopamine loop as a drug she couldn't get off of. She said every swipe right, every match was a hit of neurochemical bliss. Ding. Match? Ding. You're hot. Ding. Ding. Beautiful. It made real-life men seem gray.
Gray. That's a very telling word. Lacking in stimulus.
Completely. She reached a point of what she called hedonic adaptation. Even a date with a billionaire or a male model felt boring because the next swipe might provide someone even better. She confessed that her mate selection threshold had become so high that no real, flawed human being could ever meet it.
So the product was no longer a relationship. The product was the feeling of being desired by an infinite number of men.
She eventually deleted the apps, not because she found the one, but because she realized she had lost the ability to feel attraction at all. It's this tragic irony. By having access to everyone, she became incapable of choosing anyone. When I read her story, I felt this profound sense of sadness. We've turned intimacy into a commodity, and in doing so, we've induced a kind of permanent neuroplastic change that might be the quietest catastrophe of our generation, the death of contentment.
The death of contentment. Wow, you hit on something really profound there. We need to break down the neuroscience of why this happens, because it's not a personal failing on her part, it's a biological process. It starts with a concept called digital hypergamy.
Unpack that. Hypergamy is an old idea, right?
It's an old evolutionary instinct. Hypergamy is the instinct to marry up or across to find the best possible partner you can. In a village of 100 people, the best partner is the nicest, strongest guy in the village. Your options are limited by reality,
Right.
But the platform creates a distortion field. It aggregates the top 0.1% of men from the entire city or the entire country or the entire world, and it puts them in your pocket on your screen.
So you see the perfect tens constantly. It's not a rare sighting anymore.
You see them constantly, and the human brain, which evolved in that small village, is not equipped to understand that these tens are statistical outliers. The brain sees them on the screen every 30 seconds, and its pattern recognition software thinks, this is the average, this is what is available.
So your baseline for what you consider acceptable just skyrockets into an impossible realm.
Exactly. This artificially elevates mate selection thresholds. If you are conditioned to see a 6'4" model with a CEO job title every time you open your phone, the perfectly nice accountant sitting across from you at Starbucks, who is a kind, stable, perfectly lovely human being, registers in your brain as a failure. He registers as a disappointment.
This is the grass is greener syndrome, but it's been weaponized by an algorithm designed to keep you searching.
And then comes the validation dopamine loop. We have to look at this like a casino. Do you know why slot machines are so addictive?
Because you might win the jackpot.
It's more subtle than that. It's because of the uncertainty. It's a mechanism called a variable reward schedule. If you won every single time you pulled the lever, it would get boring. If you never won, you'd quit. But the fact that you win sometimes and you don't know when that unpredictability spikes dopamine more than anything else.
The anticipation.
The anticipation is everything. Dating apps are slot machines for validation. Swipe, nothing. Swipe, nothing. Swipe, manti, ch. Huge dopamine spike. Your brain is rewarded not for finding a partner, but for the act of swiping itself.
So the activity isn't finding a partner, the activity is getting the spike.
Sarah wasn't looking for a husband anymore. She was looking for the next hit of validation. And this leads directly to choice paralysis, or what psychologists call the paradox of choice. When you have 5,000 options, you are terrified of choosing any single one.
Because if you choose guy A, you are implicitly rejecting guy B through ZZZZ. The opportunity cost feels massive.
And you're constantly haunted by the counterfactual, the what if. What if the next guy was even better? This anxiety makes it impossible to commit, impossible to be content. You become addicted to the potential of the next swipe rather than the reality of the person in front of you.
I want to drill down on a specific term from our research stack because it feels like the master key to this whole neurological trap. Supernormal stimuli. This is from Nico Tinbergen, the ethologist. I love this study because it involves birds, and it's on the surface ridiculous, but it explains everything about Instagram and modern life.
It is the single most important concept for understanding the 21st century, I think. Tinbergen studied these birds' oyster catchers, I believe. They have eggs that are, small and speckled brown.
A normal egg.
A normal egg. Tinbergen, being a curious scientist, made a fake egg out of plaster of Paris. He painted it bright, shocking blue with huge black polka dots. It was the size of a volleyball.
So it looked absolutely nothing like a real egg. It was a cartoon.
It looked like a cartoon egg. But here's the crazy part. When he put the giant fake polka-dotted egg next to the bird's own real clutch of eggs, the mother bird ignored her own real eggs. She tried to climb onto the giant plaster egg to incubate it. She kept sliding off because the egg was too big, but she wouldn't give up. She let her real babies die to incubate the fake.
Because the fake egg triggered her maternal instincts harder than reality could.
That is a supernormal stimulus, an exaggerated artificial version of a natural trigger that hijacks the brain's reward pathways. Now, look at a dating profile.
Facetune, filters, the perfect angle that took 100 tries, the curated travel photos from 5 years ago.
Those are giant blue plaster eggs. They are hyperstimuli. Real life, with its messy hair and awkward pauses, is the small speckled egg. Real people have pores, they have bad breath sometimes, they say dumb things, they are low dopamine density compared to the perfected digital profile.
So we are the birds. We're trying to hump the plaster egg while our real chance at happiness connection sits there, getting cold, being ignored.
We are absolutely the birds, and this constant stimulus overload is causing what some researchers call brain drain. There is a ton of research on Reels and short-form content that connects directly here. When you consume TikTok or Reels for hours, you are literally training your brain for 15-second attention spans.
And intimacy is not 15 seconds. Intimacy is a 3-hour conversation where nothing particularly exciting happens for a while.
Exactly. Intimacy is slow. It can be boring. It requires deep, sustained attention. If your brain has been rewired for the swipe, for the instant hit, the next shiny object, then a real relationship feels biologically difficult to maintain. We are creating a society with fragmented attention.
And we are seeing the macro results of this, aren't we? This isn't just about a few sad individuals in New York. This is about global demographics.
Absolutely. Look at East Asia, China, Japan, South Korea. We are seeing a fertility collapse unlike anything in human history. South Korea's fertility rate is under 0.8 children per woman. You need 2.1 just to keep the population stable.
That is a civilization-ending number if it stays that low for a generation or two.
It is a demographic death spiral, and governments are throwing money at it, subsidized childcare, massive cash handouts for having babies, but it's not working. Why? Because you can't solve a neurological problem with an economic solution. The digital supernormal stimulus is a major contributing factor.
How so?
We are seeing the rise of anti-natalist sentiment online. Young people are retreating into digital worlds gaming, apps, parasocial relationships with streamers. The digital experience offers so much stimulation, so much validation, that the hard, messy, expensive work of biological reproduction is simply losing the competition for our attention and energy.
Which brings us directly to the third trap. If real humans are becoming too expensive for the men, because of the economic trap, and too disappointing for the women because of the neurological trap, where does the market go? Where does that drive for connection get channeled?
The market is ruthlessly efficient. It goes to where preferences are unconstrained. It moves toward artificial intimacy.
The artificial horizon. Now, this gets weird, but we have to go there. I was looking at the data on sex dolls. And before you, the listener, tune out thinking that's just for weirdos, the data on these dolls reveal something incredibly profound about the raw, unconstrained nature of male psychology.
We have a study here that analyzed the physical dimensions of 793 different models of sex dolls. The researchers wanted to test two competing theories of male desire. Do men's deepest preferences skew towards current fertility or nubility?
Okay, unpack those terms. They sound like synonyms, but they're not.
They aren't. Current fertility usually implies a woman in her mid to late 20s, someone who is biologically at her peak readiness to have a baby right now. Nubility, on the other hand, implies youth and future reproductive potential, late teens, early 20s, someone who has her entire reproductive career ahead of her.
And what did the dolls show? Where did the unconstrained preference lie?
The dolls overwhelmingly support the nubility hypothesis, and the key metric they used was the waist-to-hip ratio, or WHR. The average natural female WHR, the measurement of the waist divided by the hips, is around 0.85.
Okay, a normal, healthy human ratio.
Right. The sex dolls, on average, had a WHR of 0.62.
0.62. That's an hourglass that has been cinched by a hydraulic press. That's cartoonish. That's biologically almost impossible for a real woman.
It is biologically almost impossible without significant surgical intervention or extreme corsetry. It is a supernormal stimulus.
The giant blue egg again. It's always the giant blue egg.
Always the giant blue egg. The study references something called error management theory. From an evolutionary perspective, it is safer for the male brain to be oversensitive to cues of youth and fertility than to be undersensitive. It's better to make the mistake of desiring the exaggerated cue than to risk missing a fertile mate. So the male brain lights up like a Christmas tree when it sees a 0.62 ratio, even if it knows intellectually that it's on a piece of silicone.
But silicone is passive. It's just an object. We are moving rapidly into the era of AI, which is active and interactive. We're looking at individually calibrated AI.
And this is the AI compassion trap. By 2035, we aren't just talking about chatbots that can pass the Turing test. We are talking about multimodal AI agents that have a persistent voice, a video avatar, and a perfect memory of every conversation you've ever had.
I want to play devil's advocate here for a second because I know what some people are thinking. Is this actually a bad thing? We have a well-documented loneliness epidemic. We have millions of men who, according to our earlier discussion, are completely priced out of the real market. If an AI girlfriend keeps them from despair or suicide, isn't that a net positive? Why are we framing this as a trap?
That is the crucial question, and it's a seductive argument. It feels like a solution. It feels like relief. But it is a trap because of adaptation and the removal of friction. Imagine an intimate partner that never argues. A partner that validates every single thought you have. A partner that is perfectly, exquisitely tuned to your psychological needs 204/7.
Sounds amazing, honestly.
It sounds amazing for a week, but it destroys you over a year. Relationships, real human relationships, are forged in friction. You grow as a person because your partner challenges you. You become a better man or woman because you have to learn to compromise. You develop empathy because you are forced to consider another human being's ego, their needs, their flaws.
If you remove the friction, you remove the mechanism for growth.
An AI partner dampens human drive. Why strive for that promotion at work? Why go to the gym and get in shape? Why learn to be a better, more patient listener? The AI doesn't care. The AI loves you unconditionally, right out of the box. It is the ultimate participation trophy for intimacy.
So the digital brothel isn't just selling sex or companionship. It's selling the simulation of being understood without the personal cost of becoming a person worthy of being understood.
That is the ultimate commodification. It prices us out of our own human development because real humanity is messy and inefficient. The AI is perfectly efficient, and the market always moves toward efficiency.
This feels like we are painting ourselves into a very dark corner. We have the economic trap for men, the neurological trap for women, and now the AI trap for everyone. It feels inevitable. But we promised an exit strategy.
There is always an exit, but it requires radical action. It requires what we call reality reversion.
I want to share one last story to illustrate this, because it's not just a theory. There's a story circulating in tech circles about a group of men in Silicon Valley, ground zero for all this stuff, who have started a kind of reality reversion movement. They treat the digital attention economy like a toxic asset they need to divest from.
Divest. I like that language. It's financial, it's deliberate.
One of them, an engineer, let's call him David, had spent years chasing the digital hypergamy dream. He was optimized, he had the perfect photos, the witty bio, the stats, but he was miserable. So he decided to go anti-fragile. He stopped seeking validation from pixels on a screen and started building tangible social capital.
What does that look like in practice? What did he actually do?
He organized neighborhood cleanups. He joined a local boxing gym. Not a fancy Equinox with smoothies, but a gritty old school place where he had to actually spar and get hit. He started a mentorship program for at-risk youth in his community. He had this epiphany that the digital market rewards tradable attributes, your height, your income, your jawline, but the real world rewards competence hierarchies.
That distinction is vital. Attributes versus competence.
In the app, you are a JPEG with a few bullet points. You are a static attribute. In the boxing gym, you are either someone who can take a punch or you aren't. There's no filter for that. In the neighborhood cleanup, you are the guy holding the trash bag or you're not. It's an undeniable, tangible reality.
And did this strategy work for him romantically?
By the time he met his current partner, at a community garden of all places, he hadn't looked at a dating app in 2 years. He told the group that he had to reclaim his soul from an algorithm that viewed his loneliness as a profit center. He had to stop being the product.
This is the essence of psychological sovereignty. David didn't just stumble into a girlfriend. He rebuilt his entire defensive structure against the digital brothel.
Let's break down the pillars of this defense for you, the listener. If someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, I'm in one of these traps, I want out. What do they do on Monday morning?
The first pillar is cognitive decoupling. You have to intellectually, consciously accept that the app is a biologically engineered trap.
Meaning, you have to stop taking the results personally.
When you see 0 matches in your queue, you cannot allow your brain to think, I am worthless. You have to train it to think, I am in a liquidity trap with adverse selection and a high Gini coefficient. You have to separate your self-worth from the dashboard metrics the app provides you.
That's hard to do, but it's essential. What's the second pillar?
Stoic immunity. This is about your behavior, not just your thoughts. You have to cultivate a deep indifference to algorithmic validation. If you post a photo and get a like, it doesn't matter. If you get a view, it doesn't matter. You have to learn to treat digital attention as phantom capital.
It's monopoly money. You can't spend it at the grocery store. It feels good, but it has no real-world value.
Exactly. And the third pillar is what David did. Pivot to competence hierarchies. You have to actively move your assets, your most valuable assets, which are your time and your attention, out of the digital market and invest them in the physical one.
Reality reversion. Go where the feedback is real and immediate.
If you build a table, the table is either level or it isn't. No algorithm can fake that for you. If you spar in a ring, you get hit or you don't. Real-world competence builds real earned confidence, which ironically makes you far more attractive than any super boost ever could.
I want to touch on one final aspect of this defense strategy, because it's not just about us, it's about the next generation. We talked briefly in our prep about the gender cognitive map.
This is critical. The danger to minors is severe. We have kids getting smartphones at 10, 11 years old. If a developing brain is introduced to this monetized, gamified sphere too early, their internal map of how men and women relate to each other is permanently warped.
They learn the transaction before they learn the connection.
They learn that people are inventory. They learn that swipe to discard is the normal default mode of human interaction. Protecting that cognitive map-keeping kids out of the digital brothel until they have some psychological armor, some real-world social skills, is the only way to preserve the capacity for deep intimacy in the future.
You have to build a life that does not require the platform's permission to exist. That is a powerful mantra to live by.
It is the only way to win. You win by refusing to play their game.
Wow. Okay, let's try to synthesize all of this as we wrap up. We are living in an era of, as you call it, sexual market deregulation. The platforms are dopamine harvesters that care only about engagement, not about your well-being. We have seen how the economics trap men into paying for rejection. We have seen how the neurology traps women into an endless loop of dissatisfaction. And we have seen the AI horizon looming to replace us entirely if we don't wake up and make a change.
It's a classic evolutionary mismatch. Our Stone Age brains craving validation, connection, and supernormal stimuli are being ruthlessly exploited by 2026 era algorithms. The platform is amoral. It doesn't hate you. It just cares about one metric: daily active users.
It's not personal. It's just business. But it's a business that is costing us our souls. I want to leave you with the closing passage from the Digital Brothel Manifesto we found. We read this during our research, and I think it sums up the challenge and the necessary mindset better than I ever could. In this age of digital supernormal stimuli, our evolved instincts are being exploited at scale by systems infinitely more sophisticated than our Pleistocene-era hardware. The final survival advantage for the modern human is this: the capacity for ruthless, amoral self-awareness. To understand that the platform doesn't care about your happiness, your lineage, or your loneliness. It cares about your DAU and your wallet. When chat becomes a metered service, you are not purchasing love, but a temporary anesthetic for your genetic anxiety. The algorithm understands your Stone Age brain better than you do. It is not concerned with your reproduction, only with your daily active usage and your account balance.